You're listening to the Pulled by the Root podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Heidi Marvel. It's a snowy morning in Portland, and I am just so happy to be here with my beautiful co-host, Amy Hansen, and then the amazing Beth Syverson, who is an adopted mom. We are really thrilled to have her here this morning to be able to talk about some very important issues. Amy, if you don't mind, I know people are getting used to you now, but if you could just give a brief introduction about how you came to Pulled by the Root and what your mission is for volunteering and helping us.
Sure. I'm Amy. I'm an adoptee. I actually was on an episode of Pulled by the Root with Heidi, and I just am passionate about getting adoptee voices heard and just supporting everyone who is within the adoption triad or more. Constellation, I think now is more like it, right? So
yeah, all the pretty words. Well, thank you so much, Amy. It's just like a big blanket to know you're here just to keep things going. So thank you. So Beth, I grabbed the bio off your website and I took a deep dive into your website and your interviews and just the body of your work. So it's really impressive. So I'm just going to go ahead and read what I discovered. Okay. And then I wanted to share something I received, and then we're just going to go for it. Beth Syverson is a mom, wife, musician, and as of 2021, a podcaster, activist, and public speaker. Since 2019, her son Joey has struggled with addiction to substances plus serious mental health issues. For the first year of that roller coaster ride, she and Joey were both derailed. Beth tried to, quote, fix Joey with her super mom cape was tied on tight, but nothing worked to fix him. She sought help for herself, which improved her own life and also her relationship to her wife, Jan, and to Joey. She and Joey created the Safe Home podcast in August of 2021, which is now the Unraveling Adoption podcast, right, Beth?
Yeah.
Okay. With the purpose of helping other families avoid some of the pain that they have experienced. Pain that's not transformed gets transmitted. We are trying to transform our pain into practical guidance for other families with struggling teens. I also found this on your website, Beth, and it really touched me. So I'm just going to read it really quickly. Beth adopted Joey from Japan when he was 7.5 months old. We now realize that his relinquishment trauma is the core issue that caused him to seek substances. Beth is a leader for other adoptive parents who are coming out of the fog and realizing that adoption that created their family, this makes me emotional, also created trauma for their child. So Beth, before I share what I got in the mail yesterday, I just want to say, after having such a brutal struggle with my adopted mom and trying to get her to understand, I am so profoundly grateful to you, first and foremost, for being brave enough to enter our community, because it is not always a safe place for adoptive parents, and for you being willing to understand the complexity of this. I wish that my mom could have had that kind of insight, because it would have saved us 20 years of pain. And so this work is really important that you're doing, and I commend your bravery. I don't think I could do it. Sometimes I'm afraid to be here and I'm an adopted person. I'm like, what if I say something wrong? So that's my own insecurities. We'll save that for my therapy later today. But to what was really poignant is I got this beautiful handwritten letter from a lady that her interview is upcoming, but I want to keep her anonymous. And she's been listening to some of our podcasts and other podcasts that adopted people are putting out there. And this is what she said. As you may guess, my allegiance is with the first mom, because she's the first mom. However, I am very sorry your adopted mom didn't respond well to your relationship with your first family. It doesn't make sense, but I get it. I'm jealous of my oldest daughter's relationship with her father and that side of the first family. You can figure out that part of me wants her to be only on my side. Like, why would she want a relationship with that man? But that man is the father, and his other children are her siblings. I know that she has the right and deserves to have a relationship with all of her family, but it's hard. A piece of me wants to say, aren't I enough? Intellectually, I know that she can have more than one relationship, but the little girl inside me wants her to choose me. I am sure your adopted mom's inner child just wanted you to choose her. And unfortunately, her inner child was likely in control. Her behavior was likely an outgrowth of her fear that you wouldn't want her anymore, that you would not choose her and you would choose your first mom. This blank is also blanking blank hard, but you are stronger and braver than all this blank. So, Beth, it's a lot, but I just wanted to just hear from you what your reaction is to that kind of heartfelt expression.
Yeah, there's just so much pain there. And there's just pain all around. I think the pain for the adoptees and the birth parents are obviously deep, 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 deep. And there's pain on the adoptive parent side too. You know, we come into this often out of infertility. That's how I came into it. And no one told me I should probably deal with that grief. That was not mentioned at all. I just went right into adoption and now I'm dealing with it. But there's pain, and there's pain from my own attachment issues. I wasn't adopted, but I have attachment issues from my kind of a neglectful childhood. So all of that, you dump that all together, it's just a recipe for even more pain. And we tend to create, we're already in this painful situation. This adoption is painful. And then adoptive parents often just make things worse with their own insecurities, like that letter said. We, instead of being empathetic or being understanding, or, we pull up our own insecurities and add it to the fire. So.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And so zoning in on your story, first of all, I also want to commend your son for his bravery, because based on what I understand, it was his idea for you to do the podcast. And can you tell us more about how that came about, that he was willing to have his life so exposed in this way?
Yeah. So in 2021, he was in a nice stretch of recovery from substances, and he was getting pretty healthy. And I remember exactly where we were in the car. He's like, "Mom, we should make a podcast." Because we were talking about how many parents, and at the time we were thinking mostly substances. We were thinking about how many parents don't know anything about drugs. Like I didn't. I was super naive and clueless, and he snuck all sorts of stuff under my nose. So we're like, we should tell other parents so they're not so blindsided, and so they can help their kids and be more understanding and be on their side and help them and stuff like that. So I'm like, that sounds amazing. I love podcasts. And so we just dove right in. About 6 weeks in, he relapsed, and I could tell he was going to. And I said, "Joey, what do you want to do with the pod? Do you want me to just hold it for you? Do you want me to keep going?" He said, "Yeah, Mom, you keep going. You can bring on guests. And I want you to talk about relapse." So we have several different times, several different ways. It's a really important subject because it's super common in addiction. And then we bring in adoption. So at first it was called Safe Home Podcast. So we talked about addiction and adoption and mental health. And just in January of 2023, I switched it to Unraveling Adoption to focus as adoption is the main topic. And then, of course, addiction and mental health come in under that.
No, I think it's great. Amy, I know that you said you've actually been in contact with some of Beth's work. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I don't know how we connected, Beth, but it was through probably a Facebook adoption group where you had reached out to adoptees who wanted to be part of a book club when you did the primal wound. And that touched me, because you're the adoptive parent and you're trying to get insight from adoptees who have it firsthand. And I thought that was just amazing. So I've been following you and listening to everything you have to say. And I just want your word to continue to be out there to help families, and adoptive parents, because like Heidi, I struggle to this day now with my adopted mom. And what you're saying about just being empathetic and listening and not putting it back on yourself is really all I want. I can't get that.
Yep. Yeah. yeah, we just need to get out of the way most of the time. As the adoptive parents, we just need to think, less about ourselves and more about what our kid needs. And that's hard, I don't know, I'm 54. This is not how I grew up. This has been a lot of personal growth just in the last few years, because this crisis of ours has prompted much of this deep dive into my own personal growth. But yeah, to just realize this is not about me. Most of it, a few things are about me, but Joey's angst is mostly about his primal wound that happened before I even met him. But then my choice as an adoptive parent, after I've adopted, okay, I get to choose, do I want to make this worse, or do I want to help my child figure out this puzzle? And so I think if adoptive parents can just try not to make things worse, I think that would be a good goal, and see if we can help find them resources, find them peers to talk to, find them adoption competent therapists or groups or whatever modalities will help them. I think that's our duty as adoptive parents, to figure out what they need. But I didn't know when I adopted him, I didn't know anything about adoption trauma. I had no idea. I thought, oh, well, you won't even notice. I was super.
Right. So I wanted to ask you that, is that at what point did it click for you? What stage were you at with your son, where you were like, wait a second, there's more to this than what I thought?
Oh,
How did you come about that?
After he, trigger warning, some issues around suicidality. He tried to kill himself when he was 15, sent us into just this giant crisis for about a year. We were just spinning out of control, all of us. And an adoptee friend of mine, an acquaintance really at the time, said, Beth, isn't he adopted? I'm like, yes. And well, she said, well, you might want to read The Primal Wound. I have this adoption therapist if you want to go see her. And so I did. Thank God. I was, and I was desperate. It wasn't anything like great about me. I was desperate to figure anything out to help my kid. He was just, I was trying to keep him alive, literally. So I read The Primal Wound, and it was like, oof, it was a tough pill to swallow to read that book. But I was like, oh, I get it. This is something deep inside of him. He can't even think it through. It's not something rational. It's something so deep. And I just thought, well, what would that be like to be a baby? He was 7 months old when I got him, and he had been kind of floating around for 7 months in a maternity hospital, just like every 8 hours having a new caretaker and blah, blah, blah. And just all of that. And having his birth mother's pregnancy was probably filled with stress. And, just how would that be like to start off life like that? And then, of course, you would want to numb that out with cannabis and psychedelics. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you? When that became super easily available in high school, why wouldn't you? And so, so that's my friend. I'm so grateful for her, Rowan. Thank you. Thank you so much for sending me on this path.
Oh, Beth, I just want to give you a hug. Thank you for going back to that time, because it's so painful. And, I think Amy can relate to this, and adopted people that are listening. I think a lot of us thought we were suffering alone and we didn't understand, but there's so much, the statistics are thrown out there constantly, but it's never a bad idea to speak about again that addiction runs rampant amongst adopted people, as does suicidal ideation and actually completion of suicide. Those are highly rated amongst our people. And it's because of that unfelt, unheard, unprocessed pain. And I think that's why it's so important that we speak out. And personally, the way that I think about it, as I've been able to talk to so many people now, it just feels really important to get all sides of the story and understand that there's enough trauma to go around.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with people that are suffering infertility, and that's no small thing. I've actually personally experienced that. And as an adopted person, it didn't even occur to me. I thought I was going to go save a baby from Georgia, which is outside of Russia. I was ready to adopt a child, thinking I was going to do something amazing, save a child and grow my family. There was no conversation in the adoption process that I was starting about, well, have you healed yourself? Have you thought about why you want to do this? Nobody was saying anything about that. So I think that, I don't want to get onto a rant, but it just feels really important to me that we begin to understand that the healing has to begin with self.
Definitely.
You know,
I tell my adoptive parents in my group, the most important thing you can do is go get your own therapy. We want to fix our kids. Like you read in my website, I tried to fix him. I took him to every possible doctor, therapist, wacko new age thing, whatever. I didn't care. I took him everywhere, but nothing really worked at all until I went to get my own work done. Then I was in a calmer place, then I could be more settled and grounded. And then he realized, oh, look, mom's working on herself. Maybe I could go work on myself too. And it's okay if we're all just working on ourselves. So that's so important for everyone. Just focus on your own growth, wherever you are, whatever you need to do, just focus on yourself. I think that's really good, especially for the adoptive parents. We try to make somebody else their project, and that it doesn't work very well.
No, but thank you for speaking that truth.
Yeah, it's a lot. And, in a perfect world, right, Beth, what you say would be amazing. And Heidi, about like dealing with your own infertility prior to, progressing into adoption. I have very close people in my life who have adopted, and their children are adults now, young adults. And when they came to me, because they knew I was adopted, they asked for my opinion. And when they were doing this 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I said, oh my gosh, it's amazing how lucky we will be to have, how lucky they'll be to have us in their lives. With the reverse should have been said, how lucky are we that we're going to be able to have them in our lives? And so now going back, when I talk to that person, they're like, what's going on with you? And I try to explain. And because I've always said, no, I had a good life. I, was happy. My parents were great. And then now, coming out of the fog when I was almost 50, things have changed, right? And like Heidi said, I feel like most of us felt we were alone and that we had these feelings that were just not right, So we need to continue to get the word out, and definitely therapy is helpful. I think that the adoptive parents, though, they actually need to do it because they feel a need to do it, not just do it because someone says you should get therapy. You have to be honest and open in order to really address those issues with your adoptee. And my experience is that my mom will say she'll go, and she said she did, but she says she's fine, that there's no other issues that have come up. And so she has stopped going. And it's like, and she wants to know when I'm going to be done. When am I going to be done? When am I going to be fixed? I'm like, I'm not broken. Plus it was 50 years of this that is now coming to the surface where I have, words for it. So I just love what you're saying. And I just wish we could take that to all adopted parents out there. So
I do too, Beth.
You're getting there.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Amy, because Beth, one of the things that struck me about you is just you are so wide open. Like you're just willing to be vulnerable. And I have a hard question for you if you're up for it.
Sure.
So I think I can speak for myself, and I want somebody to blame, want to be the victim. And I held a lot of anger toward my adopted mom for not understanding me. And I'm just now really working through that grief because she passed away 3 years ago. And I was actually I'm sad to say, but I was relieved. I thought it would be over, but it's not over. And the healing still has to take place. And I believe that it can. But I think that we're all looking for somebody to point our finger at. And a lot of adopters get a lot of heat for that. But the way that I see it is, it feels like the industry should really, if we're going to point any fingers, we should point it at the industry that's taking advantage of the vulnerable parties. And in my mind, my way of thinking, adoptive parents are also in that category. Of course, I have allegiance to the baby because you're dealing with adults who are making decisions.
For sure.
And then you're dealing with a baby who's just getting tossed about in this hot mess. So my question for you is, people that are angry with adopters, if you will, can you understand that? And how do you answer that? Because our community is kind of like, you know, they're taking that, you know, their arms are crossed. Let's hear what you have to dance. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've gotten lots and lots of heated
you're ready
responses.
For me. Okay.
Oh yeah, I know. I've heard many, many really, really horrible things. And I am in this space knowing that I'm going to get beat up. So, and it's okay. Cause I'd rather I get beat up because I don't know why. Cause I'm actually pretty thin skinned, but I have enough resources and I have enough people around me that can help me through if I get beat up. And I know they're not beating me up. They're probably super angry at their own adoptive parents and the whole system. So I just am the symbol of that. So, and I want to also take away heat from adoptees if at all possible. I want to take, you know, because adoptees had no choice in the matter. Birth parents a lot of times had no choice in the matter either. So adoptive parents had the choice. And so I want to use that, I don't know, privilege. I don't know what to say about that, but I want to, I'm not like a punching bag, but I understand that people will look at me as an adoptive mom and just throw stuff at me just because of who I am. But I want to reach other adoptive parents. So that's why I'm willing to go out there into these trenches. And most people have been super nice. So it's just a few people behind their computer screens. They feel free to say horrible, nasty things. I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, I think you're answering it as just how do you take the heat and and I love that you're trying to reach other adopted parents it's really about education.
Yeah.
Right. And information.
Yeah. Well, and Amy mentioned that Primal Wound book club that I did. I actually still have it if anyone wants to hop in there, because there's all the discussion questions and you can continue discussion if you want. But that was with everyone in the constellation, whoever wanted to join. And I kept finding myself taking the adoptive parents aside and saying, you know, let's not ask the adoptees why they aren't grateful. Let's just not do that, shall we? And I felt like so protective of the adoptees. Like, come on, adoptive parents, you know, let's be a little bit more collected about this and not put them on the spot like that. And so I thought I need to make a book club for the Primal Wound with just adoptive parents. So that's when I created my adoptive parent group. So we can deal with all of this stuff that's really hard to deal with. Our kids are a lot of times falling apart. We're getting blamed. We're feeling guilty. We're feeling all these things, feeling helpless and hopeless. So we're all the way over here now in our own little group, working through this stuff. Why aren't our kids feeling grateful? And I can talk to them, you know, without you guys hearing it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I really love that, Beth. And I wonder if we can dig a little deeper into maybe, I don't want to say mistakes, but really things that adopted parents that you're just like, please don't do that. Do you have a few things that you can share with people that might not be familiar with your work, that are thinking about adopting or dealing with an adopted person in their life?
Yeah. Well, don't ask them why aren't they grateful? That's kind of just rude. And they come to us traumatized. I guess that's the main thing I wish I had known. Joey came to me already traumatized. If I had known that, and if I had known he had a 4 times greater chance of trying to unalive himself, if I had known he would have a 43% greater chance of having substance use disorder, I would have done so many things differently. I would have been so awake when he hit 11, 12, 13. I would have been on it, watching and kind of not expecting it, but just being very ready in case I noticed any signs of him going off the rails. As it was, I thought, my child won't do that. He's in baseball. He wouldn't risk that. Are you kidding? He would never do that. I'm such a good parent. He would not, and I was super wrong about that. So I would have had him in adoption competent therapy at any point when he was struggling. I divorced his dad when he was 4, which created a whole bunch of more trauma for him. I would have found the best therapist I could, because I realized that now that was a whole nother abandonment issue that kind of escalated the whole thing. I would have just got much more help along the way. As it was, I waited until he was super in crisis, and then I woke up. So I'm trying to find the adoptive parents that have little kids or 10-year-olds, 11, 12, before they really hit adolescence, which is where most adoptees, I think, kind of lose it. My son was just delightful until adolescence. He was like the perfect adoptee, masked, I'm not going to get given away again kind of situation. He was just really, really good kid until he grabbed substances and had his identity issues, and he got bullied a lot at school because he was Asian in a white school, and just everything fell apart at adolescence. So I should have done a lot more work when he was younger. So I'm trying to catch those parents with younger adopted kids. Also, he's transracial. His dad, actually, his adoptive dad, is Japanese American. So they kind of looked alike, but he wasn't really tied into his culture at all. So I should have done a much better job of keeping his Japanese culture going and language and finding other Asian people that he could be around. So I totally dropped the ball on the whole transracial piece of it too. So if any adoptive parents have transracial kids, that is a huge extra responsibility on top of everything else.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. I think that's so helpful. And then on the flip side of that, what things are going right? Like, what are the things that adopted parents can do that are supportive of their children?
Okay. Well,
I'd love to hear that too, because like right now I'm thinking, if you had adopted me, I think I might have been a little more stable than I am now. And I love my adopted
I agree.
person. I love her, but I think if she would have had the awareness that you're trying to impart on people, because we're really, honestly, we're not aware. Even adopted people were coming out of fog. We're like, we had no clue we were even traumatized.
Right.
So how are the people around us supposed to know?
Right.
That's what can adopted parents do right to set them on a good course with their children?
I think just openness is the key. And, my son didn't have an open adoption per se, because it was international and they definitely just wanted him literally as far away as possible. But I could have been more open with him. I was pretty open. I always told him his adoption story from when we got him, 7 months old and on. And, I always told him, when you're 18, if you want to find your birth family, I'll help you, and all that kind of stuff. But when he said stuff like, he was, I think, 7 or 8, and he said, Mom, I'm really sad because I feel like my birth mom threw me away. I said, I know, my heart just was, and instead of saying, oh, honey, that hurts, that's so sad, that must make you feel so sad, and just sat with him with that sadness, I said, oh no, honey. Oh, she loved you so much. Don't worry. She loved you and she wanted you to have a better life. So we adopted you and we love you and blah, blah, blah. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Fine. Which shut him down. And he never once brought that up again until he was suicidal. And then, comes out that he thinks about that all the time. Of course he does. And so I wasn't in a place at that time. I didn't really understand adoption trauma, and I wasn't in a secure enough place of myself where I could just sit with him. Yeah, that sucks. That was really hard that you feel like your mom threw you away. That must really hurt. What can I do to help you? I wasn't at that place, but I'm trying to teach other adoptive parents to be at that place. It takes a lot of, you have to really put yourself in your kid's shoes. And they're not a blank slate. They did come with this whole past that you really don't even know all about. And you just have to think, what do they need? They don't need this swept under the rug right now. They don't need to forget about it. They need to sit in it. And I just need to sit there with him. There's really nothing even to say. Just, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that. Amy, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's the word that comes to mind, Beth and Amy, is validation.
Yeah.
Like just that validation that,
And like I said, I did it wrong. And I am an open book, and I'm willing to tell everyone in the world all the stuff I did wrong, so other people can learn from our story. And I forgot to mention this early on in this interview. Joey continues to give his consent to share our story. I ask him every couple of weeks, are you still fine with me blabbing everything all over the place? And he says, yes, Mom, our story needs to help other people and you're helping adoptive parents, and keep going. So he is really on board. I pray someday he will be out. My dream is for him and I to do a TED Talk together. That's my big dream. I want us to be able to do it together, talking about adoption, about addiction and mental health, and just how parents and kids can work together better from all the things that we've learned. And most of it's just all the stuff I did wrong, but now I know, and I'm trying to help by don't do what I did, do this, what I've now know would be a better thing to do.
Well, I think I'm on that mission too. And, you know, I appreciate your honesty with that, because it's really hard to accept our own responsibility in things, even though I believe most people are well-intentioned. Don't you think so, Amy? Like, I don't.
Yeah, I do. And I think it's almost like where we are in the world today is that we just need to respect each other, right? We all have opinions. We all have feelings. My feelings might not be the same as yours, but you're a lovely person and we get along. We don't need to disrespect each other and where we are at in the world. Because, you know, speaking, you know, I mean, just like you said, Beth, you can be in adopted groups and on Facebook and you see messages and you're like, that was just hurtful. To cut someone down by sharing that they felt trauma as, you know, a teenager or whatever. And it doesn't matter what I felt. If you didn't feel it, that's fine, you know, but let's respect each other. Let's listen to each other, and not throw people down. We need to build each other up. We need to be together in this. But I think that's kind of in the world right now. We're just not respectful to others. And we all need to learn to be that way. And that would help our community too, to share the knowledge and education of what we all need within this adoption community. Yeah.
We're all, you know, just doing the best we can. Every single one of us, I believe, if we could do better, we would do better. Right. So we're all doing the best we can with what we had, what we were given when we were born, right? What we grew up with, what tools we've gathered along the way. And gosh, if we could just all realize that we're all just trying to get through and have empathy for all the different parts of the constellation. We're all in pain. Literally, this whole adoption industry is just filled with pain on all sides. So just give us all some grace and realize that there are people on the other ends of these, you know, Facebook comments. You know, there's actually people that we're affecting, and we can either help build them up or tear them down. So I think that's really important because it can be pretty toxic out there.
It can. And I think being in a public space, it's always risky. But whenever I start to tuck my tail and think I'm gonna go off in the distance if I get a comment or a disruption, then something like really feisty spikes up in me and I say no, because that negative energy is so few and far between. I think the majority of people are listening and engaging in these kinds of things because they want help. They want relief. They want guidance. They want to know they're not alone. We're not a replacement for therapy, for sure. And I did want to talk about that too, Beth, because one of the things that irks me beyond belief is, you know, I get therapy and it's expensive. I have great insurance and we're in a position where we can afford it. And I'm so grateful. But I'm like, we're always telling people to go get all of this intensive help. But where are the resources?
Yes.
You know, like so many people are left out of it. And I think that part breaks my heart because I think you see commercials all the time and all of this, like it's so easy to do. But in my, at least my experience, unless you've got great insurance and some privilege, you may not have access to the kind of intensive help you need. So I wonder what you think about that, because I know that is a huge part of healing for most people is getting, just getting therapy, but let's make it a little more challenging and try to get adoption competent therapy.
Yeah. Try to find that first of all, then be able to afford it.
Hellfire.
I think that adoptive parents maybe should be heads up when you adopt. You better have money for lifetime of therapy for your child and yourself. You better have money to schlep them back to their birth country a few times if that seems to be called for. There's some things that we need to just be prepared to do that are above and beyond what a typical birth child would have to do. I think that that's crucial. And I also think that the agencies should provide free therapy for life for adoptees. I mean, there's a lot of things that the industry, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, could be doing to help adoptees that they're not doing. They consider it like a transaction and then they're done with you guys, and that's not okay. So, but yeah, it's expensive. And through our insurance, they've provided rehabs and things for Joey, but none of it has really worked. And none of it has been trauma informed or adoption competent. Zero of it has been. The things that I found that have helped him have been off the beaten path. We've had to pay cash, not covered by our insurance, kind of a little off, new agey kind of stuff has helped him more than our traditional stuff. We've had psychiatrists say, oh, he was a baby when that happened. That's not any piece of this. It doesn't matter. So yeah, it's been horrible. Our healthcare system has been absolutely horrible. So I'm trying to fight for my kid and trying to get him what he needs and just running into one obstacle after another. And people that just do not get it. They don't get it. So it's really frustrating. So adoptive parents, I think, have to just be their own kids' advocate and find whatever you can find. I'm actually right now trying to get him into some peer support groups, which there's so many, like Fireside and Celia Center. And I'm trying to get him to talk to other adoptees, but it's hard because he's like, Mom, I don't want to. What if they reject me? Which is, it's so sad. That's, his first thing is he doesn't want to get rejected, which is of course his primal wound just up again. But I'm like, of all people, adoptees would understand. So, but it's really disappointing that our regular old healthcare system has no concept of adoption trauma. It's like not even on their radar. I don't know if you guys have experienced that as well. It's frustrating from my end for sure.
Amy, what about you? What have been your experiences just trying to find help for yourself, if you don't mind sharing something so personal?
It took me a while to research and be able to find an adopted competent therapist. The first therapist that I did find a few years ago, when I was like, I really need to talk to someone. She was also an adoptee, and to me that didn't go well. So the woman who I'm working with is, trauma-based, and works with adoptees, adopted parents. And it's really good for me. So I'm lucky. I feel like I'm very lucky in that matter because, I also see a psychologist too, and she's learning from me.
That's actually really cool. I feel the same way about my counselor. It's kind of a reciprocal thing where I'm bringing up points, and I think that's another thing that's so powerful about the community and being able to hear from all sides is that that's such a resource for us to plug into. And if you can't afford therapy, at least it's something.
Yeah.
It's not a replacement, but I'm just so grateful that there's so much good content out there for people to latch onto. And Beth, your content is amazing. Since Joey doesn't mind being talked about, I just want him to know, thank you, Joey, for your bravery, for being able to allow this kind of conversation to take place, because you are stronger than you think. So I just want to send that message to Joey. That being said, what can you share about his journey right now, like his healing, and what hope you have, Beth, because that you've been through a lot as a family. So if you don't mind sharing like an update with us, if it feels okay for you to do that.
Yeah. Right now, it's been about 4 or 5 months since he's had really bad suicidality. So his mental health is pretty good. He kind of suffers from chronic suicidality, like every day. It's like a 2 or 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. But then it sometimes spikes. So the last time it spiked was around his birthday, which adoptees I know often have really bad struggles around their birthday. So that was November 1st. And so, but he's been pretty good about that. So that's good. he's struggled on and off with substances though. He's wickedly addicted to cannabis. And I have so many people say, oh, Beth, it's just weed, whatever. But oh my God, you guys, this is not just weed. It is, the kids are using the dabbing and the tinctures and the oils and it's extremely potent. He uses like 95% THC content. And it blacks him out and he goes into psychosis, which is terrifying because he might not come down one of these days. And so we've been working with harm reduction, and he knows the amount that he can take that won't put him into psychosis. We think, I don't know if you can ever know for sure, but he's reducing, but he's been off and on, off and on, off and on. And it's heartbreaking to watch, because when he's off, I'm like, oh, okay, we're good. All right. I can breathe again. And then he picks it back up again. Cause it's really hard to compete with a substance that will totally numb you out. It numbs out all those bad feelings. How can I compete with that? I don't know. So he's having to figure out how to live his life. He's only 19. He hasn't really been able to hold down a job yet or what, so he's just trying to find his path. He's struggling. But from what I've learned from my life coach, who's taught me all about parenting an addicted child, my main priority with him is connection. The opposite of addiction is connection, not sobriety. So whether he's sober or not, whether he's high or not, whether he's, self-destructing or not, I am the same to him. My behavior and my attitude toward him is the same. At least I try. And so we connect almost every day, and he almost always answers the phone when I call. And he lets me know when he needs something, and he's open to me letting him know about these support groups and things. I say, you want me to remind you when it gets close? He goes, yep, remind me. And I do. And then sometimes he'll do it and sometimes he won't, but he's open to it. I know he's in there and he wants to heal, but it's just so hard to rip off that Band-Aid of the substances. So I'm very sympathetic. I know the reasons behind the use. He's not just trying to make me crazy or be delinquent or whatever. He's extremely hurting and, literally unable to function. So he's grabbed onto the substances, but I hope that he will come back out of it again. The relapses have been coming and going pretty quickly, which is, I think, good. And he just has to dip back in and go, oh yeah, that's why I don't do that. He realizes pretty quickly, oh yeah, that doesn't get me anywhere at all. It makes things worse. So I'm hoping he'll come back out soon. And, I have this deep, deep feeling that Joey will change the world. If we can keep him alive, that if he can come out of it, he will be such a powerful force for adoptees and for people who are addicted. And he's so eloquent and able to talk about his experience. There's a couple of episodes that I really love in our podcast. One was him talking about relapse in a place of relapse,
That's
which
amazing.
I don't think most people will talk to anyone that's in relapse. You just sort of shove them off the sidewalk and say, oh, I'll talk to you later, but he's willing and able to talk about his experience. And I think that's just so brave of him and so smart. And he's so wise. I think he's an old soul, I think he really has so much insight and understanding. And I think someday he's going to write a book or make a movie or music or poetry or be a speaker or something. He's going to just be amazing. So I'm just holding out hope for that. And I appreciate so many of you have listened to our podcast or who know our family, have kept us in your prayers and in your thoughts or whatever you guys do. And we feel it. And Joey knows it. He knows he has so many people on board rooting for him. And he knows he has way more cheerleaders than most people have. So he's trying really, really hard.
Thank you for sharing that, Beth. And I wonder other parents that are in a similar situation, or maybe adopted people that are feeling like it's, the suicidal issues. I think it's interesting how you were saying that there's a scale for it.
Yeah.
And how do you mind diving a little deeper into that? Because the fact that to me, it seems amazing. And Amy, I'm sure you feel the same way, that you're able to actually talk to your son on a daily basis and figure out where he's on that scale. Like, how did you get to that point where he would even share that with you? Because, wow, that's a big deal in my mind.
Yeah, that's huge. And it's tough as a parent to hear where he is on the scale because you want it to be 0. But I think the very first time he was in the psych hospital after his first attempt, we all just said, okay, we have no more F's to give. Let's just be honest with each other. And so something just cracked. And since then, we've just been super honest with each other. He doesn't really, I don't know. I'm very grateful though. But I don't know, one of the hospitals or one of his rehab programs taught us, it's a scale from 1 to 10, and they call it the SI scale, suicidal ideation. So I just say, what's your SI today, Joe? And he goes, 3 or 5 or 7. I'm like, ooh, 7. Okay, what do you need? If it's over 5, I'm like, okay. And then when it gets to be 10, I drive him to the hospital. He's not at a 10 very often, but he's been at a 10 several times. He's been hospitalized, I don't know, 8 times, something like that, for suicidal ideation or attempts. So it's been an ongoing thing. And it turns out he's had it since, kindergarten. He's had these dark thoughts since kindergarten. He just would rather be dead. And that's definitely his primal wound. It's so unsafe for him in his body. He just doesn't want to be here. And then psychedelics came on and he found another place for him to be, and he would rather just stay there. So that's pretty terrifying. But I'm so grateful he's willing to talk to me, because if I didn't know, there's no way I could help him, for one thing. And he does trust me. And I'm the one he calls when he's feeling wonky. I'm the one he calls, and I can usually settle him down. We use breathing. And what I've had to learn as a parent, which was super hard, is not to flip out and go, oh my God, you're feeling suicidal. Oh my God, what do we do? Because that doesn't help. that makes him worse. So I've got to be the one that stays calm, which takes a lot of mindfulness and presence and grounding. That's my work that I've done. So I can stay calm. Oh, okay, you're a 5. Okay, you want to tell me about that? What are you feeling right now? What do you need? Do you need me to come get you? Do you need to just stay on the phone? And it's a calm voice and it's slow. And he knows that I am his safety. So I'm grateful that, and that's my, and I was talking about him being on substances and relapse. My goal is to stay connected, because it's literally life and death. I need him to stay connected to me, because he and I know each other so well, and he knows that I'm in his corner no matter what. And so he calls me, and I'm so grateful, because he could call some bozo friend of his that is also using psychedelics, and God only knows what they would get into, or he could call a bunch of people, but I want him to call me. So I want to stay connected. Not that I don't want to sound like I know exactly what to do, or that I'm his savior or something like that, but he and I know the formula. We've been around this a few times. And so I just want him to stay connected. Whatever's going on with him, I want him to stay connected.
Thank you for sharing that Beth, because I'm sure there are so many people in a similar situation that don't know how to reach their child.
Yeah.
Or may not even be aware that this is happening,
It's tough. And sometimes all you do is you just sit there and go, I'm here, I'm right here. And that's all they need. And it's not about having answers or having just the right things to say. God only knows. I've tried every little thing to say. Nope, didn't work either. It's not something we have to say or do. It's just a safety that you need to be able to offer. They might not even accept it, but a sense of safety, a sense of, I'm okay just the way I am. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm just to provide a safe zone for them to just be, and to know that you're holding them. That's been really beneficial for Joey, I think. And it's been my life work the last couple of years to be able to be that for him.
Beth, I'm curious. I don't know. I have such a little reserve right now just for coping with anything. And it's just inspiring to listen to you, because it actually makes me feel really emotional to think about how are you doing this? How are you staying strong? I want the formula, like,
Okay.
because I can't even imagine, Beth, like my son wanting to leave this world, like that just pain. I just don't know if I could stand up the way that you have. And it's just incredible that you're able to do what you're doing and to dive into this work and to be so honest about it. So is it the work? Is it the hope that you can change things? Like, what is the drive that gives you that I can get out of bed today? I can do this today.
Well, it's not always pretty. And I do get depressed sometimes, and I do kind of spiral sometimes, but I'll give you my formula. It's a lot of self-care. My food is extremely important to me. I have to really manage my food well. So I have, I have this whole food thing, but taking care of my food, I always carry food with me because I never know when I'm going to have to run to get Joey or spend the night in the hospital or whatever. I always have food with me. Sleep, exercise. And this is even when my son is in crisis, especially when my son is in crisis. These things are so important. I also started taiko drumming, the Japanese drumming. I started that. I was hoping Joey would do it with me. I wanted to connect him with his Japanese roots. But as soon as I did it, it became a mom thing to do. So not cool anymore. So darn it. But I love doing, I went last night and I just bang whatever out of my system. And it feels like a jackhammer. The sound waves are just like pounding and just ripping everything up in a good way. So I have that. I go to that no matter what. I'm also in therapy. I'm doing EMDR, which is extremely helpful. I've actually done psychedelic therapy once. It was transformative. I'm really looking forward to that being more available. I really have a lot of hope for that. And my wife is extremely supportive. I meditate every day. It's no small thing to keep this machine running so I can be there for my son. It's a lot of things I do every single day. To comedy, I have to watch comedy every day because this is intense work, especially all this work I'm doing around adoption. It's like, oh my God, it's so sad all the time. So comedy I have to do every day. It's like my vitamins, all these different things I have to do. And it's a daily thing. It's not just, every once in a while. I have to keep all of these things cooking for my own self-care so I can be present for him.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so interesting because I just started taking drum lessons at 57.
Oh, what kind of drumming?
I just regular rock and roll drumming.
Oh, nice.
And we could bleep this out, but it feels so good to beat the shit out of those drums.
Honestly,
like
it's extremely.
We have 2.5 acres, and my neighbors are very tolerant, but they're like, "Why don't you put the headphones on?" I said, "It's not the same." Like,
no. You gotta make the noise. Oh, it's so great.
I really appreciate you saying that because you're right. It takes a lot to be able to stay in that place. Amy, how do you feel about like the self-care? You seem like you're really good at it. Are you? Or no, you're not.
No. I'm not. I dream about it.
Hey, that's a start.
I mean, I try. I still, my kids are out of the house. I do have one still living at home getting her master's, but, my kids come first still. I still feel like I'm the mom who puts everyone in front of me. So I put my needs second. So I'm so happy for you, Beth, that you have found that balance where you are taking care of yourself, because I think that allows you to be so available for your son. And the way that you also spoke about just every time you speak to him, it's the same. And that has to mean the world to him, because the worst thing you can get is when you call your parent and you get, "What are you doing?" Right? What's going on? When really you just kind of wanted to vent and you just needed someone to sit with you. So amazing. But I feel like your self-care and your rituals are definitely what helps get you through that, because you got to care for yourself before you can care for others.
My life coach, Heather Ross, taught me that after the year of spinning around with him, I got this life coach. She helped me so much. And she has a daughter also that struggled with addiction. And so she knew. And she says, Beth, you got to take the focus off him and put it on you. You know, the whole oxygen mask thing in the airplane, parents have to put it on first. And it just goes against everything because you're like, but he's falling apart. But no, you got to, in order to help your kids, you have to be able to be solid in yourself. And that's so hard, but I'm so grateful I learned that because I had no idea this would be taking this long. For one thing, I thought, okay, we'll fix it. The addiction will be gone soon. But no, this is probably going to be a lifelong thing, right? Just the struggle of managing for Joey. But I'm so grateful because, and it's helped blossom my own life. Criminy, I have gotten so much out of my connections with other adoptees and other, creative people. And I've learned so much because I was able to find myself. I had lost myself completely in that first year. I had no idea. I was missing all sorts of work and I, wasn't taking good care of myself. And I just was giving myself wholly to Joey. And that is too much pressure to put on him. And I completely lost myself. So it's much better this way if you take care of yourself first. And I know how hard it is to do because it was like, are you sure?
Well, yeah, because I think, mothers, women in general, it's like there's admiration for self-sacrifice.
Yes, it's encouraged in our culture, right?
It's like, oh, you're being selfish if you focus on yourself. But honestly, if we can begin to change that, I think that is the best thing ever, because to be able to touch base for him and just know mom is going to be the same today as she was yesterday and the day after that. I don't provide that for my son. He's like, what kind of crazy am I getting today? What is going to happen? So Beth, goals. I have goals. Oh my gosh. I just looked at the time and realized we've been doing this for an hour. I could do this all day, but I know you ladies probably have other things to do. So I just so appreciate this incredible conversation. And as we wrap things up, Beth, is there anything we didn't talk about or any messages you would like to leave behind to our incredible audience who they are so spectacular?
I love the adult adoptees like yourself, Heidi, that I've listened to your podcast and so many other podcasters and other adult adoptees that I know. And I'm just so grateful because you inform me so much of how my son might be feeling, things he might be going through, things he'll go through later on. And I just value so much that you're willing to even just have me in your circle at all, and that you're willing to share the space with me. I'm so grateful, and I'll continue to listen. I tell the adoptive parents, after you go get your own therapy, your second thing is to go listen to adult adoptees. So I'm so grateful that you put yourself out here into this space with your podcast, and I will just continue listening and learning from you all.
Well, we just thank you so much for being willing to just open up your heart and to be able to take those punches when you have to, and to be able to stand back up and say, I'm standing for something I really believe in.
Yeah.
I think for me, it just makes me feel more understood. Amy, is there any last thoughts for Beth or just for our conversation?
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing, and do tell Joey thank you, because really without him, right, we would not have been talking today.
Absolutely.
So he's doing a tremendous job, and you keeping it rolling until he's ready to step back. That'll be amazing.
Hopefully he'll be back on soon.
Joey, we believe in you. We need your voice, and I can't wait to see you on that TED stage. And hopefully we need to do it sooner rather than later.
Yes.
I just as soon not be on a walker when that happens. Well, I appreciate you ladies so much. I hope you have a great day, and let's just keep doing the hard work. It's going to pay off.
Okay, definitely. Thank you so much. Thanks, Heidi and Amy.
Bye.
Thanks.